Here we go.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
So lovely to have you guys here,
Mm-hmm.
all of us. So nice. We've had such wonderful weeks. Beautiful, beautiful people coming to this platform.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of wonderful messages for Neil. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'd like to welcome everyone that's watching and has been continuing to join us for these speaker series. I'm feeling tired today, so I'd like to ask one of you to come in and say hello and welcome.
Yes, hello, welcome. And we're so happy that you've joined us here today. Like Jody said, it's been a whirlwind week, and we're not even done yet with our survivors, residential school survivors and thrivers. What a wonderful way of bringing community together. We started with Tea for Totah a couple of weeks ago, and that was kind of the first time that we brought community together, and it has been growing and growing and growing. This week has just been so heartfelt, with so many people sharing their stories, sharing their life experiences, and we're truly humble for that, and we give honor to them, because without their stories, how can we have create that sense of healing as well? So we really thank them for being with us, and we have grandmother Renee here and grandfather Neil, that is agreed to join us, which is wonderful, with another backed by popular demand. So I'm going to take it away. I have to go and grab my tea. And Renee and Neil, the floor is yours.
I got laryngitis, so Renee, you take over.
Well, I have a salve for that.
Okay, send it through.
Okay, you got it. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to a time with hearing from the grandmas and the grandpas. You know that we've always been wishing we could spend more time with you. You know, everyone got caught up in this busy world. And what happened was we forgot about our elders. We forgot about visiting them. So today we have that ability to go into your homes to visit you. Many of our grandfathers and grandmothers, long time ago, they didn't have a place to go outside of their own home, and everybody came to their home. Now they're put in nursing homes, and it's sad because that home was, since you were a baby, it went right till you were a senior, and there was no such thing as an old age home. There was no such thing as being put out. You see, how you treated it was us. It was us. As by giving us this gift, you know, we were given this gift by our grandparents. And that gift was of love and of stories and of adventures and a lot of laughter. And our memories are so strong that's where our resilience comes in, is hearing those stories of long ago. And so we are here today to share some stories. But first, you know, the one way to get everyone's attention is to hear the drum. And that is what we have always been so blessed, is that the drum has returned to us so that we can hear the vibration of all creation. And that's what the ancestors would say. Listen to the wind outside. Listen how he's blowing. He's telling us a message. And so you get ready, because now the drum will take over. Because the old man winter, they say, is out, and he is visiting us. He is causing us to come together. And that's his gift. Because we've been scattered out there, and now he's brought that wind, that cold wind. Oh, we give thanks to him, because you see, he brings us closer together. And that's what we need to remember again. He has a purpose, and that is to bring us together, to remember when. And so we have been blessed with this cold. And this cold came to bring down the virus. And so let's sing a song for that. Let's sing a song and celebrate Old Man Winter and all the gifts that he brought for us. So Neil, take it over.
Frosty the Snowman.
You remembered him. Oh, I was hoping you would. Oh,
I remember him. I remember that guy from when I was a little guy, 200 years ago. Abo din may magdidok ka chichakles ni kaswa pishigay to them. Ni kwet random mampigay ni wiki kataya na banggi. We do cook min mabum sa giving the kwe. Renee Thomas Hill Asian Closet. Mabum Joe D. Asian Closet. O Sherry. Mira sa kwet min nan trem na to chakwa badwa kinigay wa. Oh, de no G money Joe D. The Union Monation Closet Jem na do. Kwet min chisready me and Nishaga na shim chin sita go on getting it there. I give you my name as a Chichak, meaning crane. I give you my clan, the Wabjashe, the Martin. I give thanks to my very good friend, Renee Thomas Hill, who is much older than I am. I am only 34. She is 50. And of course to Jody and her daughter. And of course to Sherry. Thank you very much for having me upon coming to help out or talk a little bit about certain things. But before we do the things, we have to sing a song. And we have to understand the true meaning of what this drum means to our people. It's the heartbeat of our mother. It's the heartbeat of our nations. No matter where your nation is or where you are, language, there is no barrier. There is no barrier in our cultures because these drums come together to bring forward that life that has been given. Shamanero, Giganona, Mutsean, Giganona, Rizan, hey, oh. Special mass, Giganona, Mutsean, Giganona, special mass, hey, oh. And again, when we do in some of our teachings, we always talk about the drum, like Grandmother Renee had said that. But the drum is always the important part of anything in our beginnings. And back in the day back in those days when they used to have those drums, the water drums of the Haudenosaunee, the little boy drums of the Anishinaabe, they used to bring the people together when this voice sounded. And when that voice sounded, that I mean everything was about to start. It would sound its voice again the second time. In our lodges, they would sound the second time around by hitting the drum 4 times and calling the people in. And things were getting ready. But those drums are an important part of who we are. The drum beat in our hearts, the drum beat of Mother Earth, the drum beats of those birds that fly, because you can actually hear them before it's kind of the flapping of their wings. It sounds like the heartbeat. They're preparing. And in those stories that some of the stories I've heard growing up, it talks about how life used to be. Some of the old folks used to remember how it was before any of the hydro came to Christian Island. Oh man, I remember that. That was 1952, I believe, or 56, somewhere in that time period. Remember, I'm old, I can't remember. But again, when we were young back in those days, we could see in the dark. We could actually see in the dark and see where everything was, because we knew the land. We knew everything about the trees. You know, when you look at the trees, you see the points on top in the darkness. But we knew where everything was because there was no lights in our community. We didn't have hydro. We had coal oil lamps is what we had, and some had the big lamps, lanterns, with the little gas in it, and had a little outfit inside to let that lights up, brightens up the room. And that's all we had. And yet we were able to do the things that I don't think no one can do today. I don't think anyone can do that. Us older folks probably still can. I know where the trails used to be, but we can't do those trails anymore because everybody built on those trails that we used to play on. And we used to run. Oh, we loved running. If somebody chased us, we'd have to run. We'd have to love running then. And you know, back in those days though, you could play with anything. You could play with a stick and still have fun with it. You could play with stones and still have fun with it. You could make forts just out of branches. Fallen branches. You could make a fort, build it all up, and you'd hide in there.
Yes.
I remember when we were kids, we used to play cowboys and Indians. So we'd separate everybody and we'd say, that nobody wanted to be the Indian. Holy mackerel. Nobody wanted to be the Indian. Everybody wanted to be the cowboy. Because everybody wanted to be John Wayne. Because we used to watch those shows, the old Westerns. John Wayne, one bullet. Take out 40 Indians in one shot. You know, and then we used to laugh with then as we got older and began to, you know, but when we played with whatever we had.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have what we have now. We just had our friendship with the guys and having fun, going to the other side of the island, playing along, jumping along the big boulders on the other side, walking across the beach, eating sandberries, as we called them. We'd gather our food. We got hungry. We knew where all the apple trees are. We knew where the grapevines were, too. Yeah. We had grapes here at one time till the hydro came in. They burnt them out. Mm-hmm. So those things wouldn't go up into the hydro lines. But by gosh, we used to have fun though. We used to walk all over the island, all over, and that was our fun. That was one of the, I think, the best times of I can remember was when we went fishing. Springtime. We used to a bunch of us used to go up there. They would say, "Hambe, what's king rara? Hambe, which means let's go to the other side, the north end of the island." You didn't ask why. You just went. Oh, and then they say, "Okay, Neil, you carry this. Okay, that's your job. Carry that. Look after it. All right." The older men would be carrying the other stuff, the heavier things, because we used to go and do some bass fishing when they came in close to shore. And oh my God, took us about an hour and a half just to walk to the hill that we had to go down. And by the time, because it's a steep hill, and we went at a place called Kidrush on the other side of the island, North End. And we'd get there to get everything ready. They would say, "Oh, son, go get some wood." Okay, off we went. Let's gather a bunch of wood. Ladies would get all their frying pans ready. The nets would be drawn out. Actually, we had 2 nets. The first one we took out, we had to walk kind of in a half a moon circle around, walk way up to our necks in water, and then came back with the net. And then the other guys brought the other net to hook up, and that's where we hooked them up, and then we pulled them tight. But we didn't go towards the shore. We went back the same way we came into the water. And we at the end of it, so we got it back on shore, and we waited for a while. Oh, probably maybe 15, 20 minutes. Make sure that everything was set and everything was all set up to get these things. And all of a sudden, one of the guys would say, "Aha, Kubigwashnik," or run into the water. And a whole bunch of us, there was about 8 of us, we'd rush into the water. And all you could see were those fish, the net going like this, dropping, because the fish was hitting it. Oh, me, okay, then we'd pull them in, take them off, and one more round. I think we used to get about 20 per run. And anyway, we'd bring them all in, get them clean them all up, and the ladies would be cooking the bass. And oh man, we'd just sit back after against a rock or something. It didn't matter because on that side of the island too, there were water snakes, big ones. They weren't small, they were huge. But it didn't bother us because we were so tired after eating fish. What else was there? Scone, big bread, tea. Man, jeez, I could just still taste that. And then and then all of a sudden they'd all say, "Oh, big you it," and they'd say, "Okay, let's go home." Then we gathered up our stuff. I, of course, had to carry what I brought. Walked up that big hill again. Got to the top. We'd rest up there for a while. Then we'd come home. But those days are gone, those days are gone. And yet, those are the good memories, and those are the best memories I have. Because a lot of the old folks, our aunties and uncles that lived on the island here, they showed us a few things. They showed us a few things. And but most of the big things is that we knew where our food was when we had to walk back. And then they'd gather some sweet grass on the way back, and then it was fun. Those are the days I remember. And when I think about those days from way back, I always think about the old ones that passed on into that spirit world. I think about the ones that gave us that chance to do something, to have a meal together. And sometimes that's very rare nowadays. Now, at this point in time, it's very rare because of this COVID. But my daughters, and they come over and we have meal here, or I go over there and have a meal with them. And then, but anyway, that's one of the stories I have. And, but those memories, though, it's the memories of that good life. And they used to talk there too. They used to tell us stories about how it used to be a long time ago. And when they had those rowboats, they had nothing else but rowboats in Georgian Bay, and they had to cross to get groceries. I don't know if you've ever been here, Renee, to the island. Okay. Well, we have a lighthouse, what we call a lighthouse point. And there used to be a lighthouse keeper there. That was way before my time. And that's where they got groceries. And they had to walk down there to get it, because it's only about a mile across from that point to the mainland. But where our boat goes from is from dock to dock. It's about 3 miles. But they used to talk about those stories, how they used to walk down there. sit with the lighthouse keeper, and they talked there for a while. And oh man, it must have been really. And then of course they had horses here too, and that's what they used to use, horse and wagon to go down, or sometimes you just walk. It's not that far. If you're a good walker, it'd take probably about maybe 45 minutes. But it's a nice walk. It's a good walk. Then of course the cottages came. Anyway, I don't want to take too much time. I think Grandmother Renee has a few words.
You brought many stories to my mind. Every season had great stories for us to get through it. You know, springtime, it was the mud, it was the frogs, all this thing, and then he always had a story for every season. So after a while, we got looking forward to it because we would relate it to that story. Then would there be a story for the summertime? All those memories. And then there would be a story for the fall and getting ready. And those stories was really, it was almost like getting ready because we were outside all the time. We didn't have no calendar that, like people look at every day. We just knew it was another day to go out there, go to school, and then go and play. And so these stories were very important for us. And then the winter had its stories. And I like how Neil he reminded me of running. You know, in the winter time, it's so you hear the crust of the snow. That's how cold it used to be. You could hear the crunching of it. And one time we were out there, we were back in the woods again. And we heard this crack, a real big crack. And all of us playing out there, and all of a sudden we just stopped. And then we heard another crack. And it was almost like someone was coming. And we looked around, we couldn't see anybody. And now all of a sudden there was another crack. It sounded like enormous. Somebody said, "Is that Bigfoot?" And we were looking around. And we didn't want to move. We didn't want to move because we didn't want to. And some finally another crack, and we just took off. We just ran home, and we ran in the house. And when we got in there, our face must have been just pale because my dad at the time just looked at us, and he started laughing. He says, "What did you see?" And I said, "Oh, Dad, it was Dad. It was. I don't know what it was, but it was awful big." Because you could hear it all over in the woods. And it sounded like he was coming towards us. And my dad bust out laughing. He says, I don't know what the name he had called him at the time. It was like Old Man Winter. He says, he's just checking up on you guys. But, he's getting the wood ready. He says, he's letting you know which wood to cut for next year or for the springtime. He says, he goes around and he taps the trees. And when the trees, it was later on we found out how frost can kill the trees. And so all that time we thought he was a big giant. Old Man Winter was the biggest giant. We thought he was Bigfoot at that time. And when we came, and my dad just looked at our face, he says, "Yes, that happened to me too when I was young." He says, Jack Frost or whatever his name was at the time, and he would tap those trees and tell us, "This is a tree." You would remember where you heard it, so you would go back and you would see that. And also there was a time when a different time of season again, and it was a time of summertime. Oh, it was so hot. So I'm going from one extreme to the next. But it was so hot, and I lived along the river. My one parent lived from up end of the reserve, and my other parent lived down from the other end of the reserve. But they lived along the reserve, the river. And one time we were at our grandma's, and she lived up on a hill, and the river was just down at the bottom of the hill there. And so we were there. My grandparents lived on the border of the reserve, and their next door neighbors were the settlers. And we had a good relationship with them because they also shared their stories. from their country, from the old country. And so sometimes we would take turns listening to their stories, and they would come and hear our stories. But some of the stories were very similar. And that's what made it, that relationship stronger. Knowing that whatever we went through, all those struggles we had, we could get through it. And so this one, as I was saying, this me and my brother, we were out. We decided to go down to the orchard, the next door neighbors. And so, of course, I'm walking backwards, I'm talking, and I'm my brother is coming this way towards me. And it was one of those real hot days. And all of a sudden, I seen my brother's eyes just get really big, and he went, and I froze. I froze just like that. I was going to take a step back, and he goes, and I turned real slow. Here was one of those snakes that Neil was talking about. They were along the river snakes. They were really big. And I swear he was the biggest snake I have ever seen in my whole life. Oh, gosh, I don't know where I got that second wind, but I made it. I ran so fast. We both turned around and we ran. We hit that door at the same time. My grandma, she was by the stove, and she was looking at us, and she started laughing. What's the matter? What's the matter? And we said, oh, Grandma, there was this big snake. And we were almost going like this, because we were little kids then. We were saying it was so big. Grandma looks at us. Yeah. We're looking at her grandma. Did she see that snake too? Has she seen that snake? And so we were looking at her, and she said, oh yeah, he's out and about, but you don't worry. Don't worry. You'll be okay. He says, go and play. And I says, what do you mean, Grandma? He says, oh, the thunder beings notice he's out, and you watch. They're going to come. They're going to come. So you can go and play, because they're going to send him back home. We went, thunder beings? What does she know that we don't know? And so we went outside, and we were just kind of looking, thunder beings, where are they? Looking around. And we forgot all about it because we got playing. And the next thing you know, the skies got really cloudy. And all of a sudden, the sky opened up, and it went, whoosh, the lightning came, the bolts, and we went, the thunder started to roar and everything else. And we ran into the house, and it was a real severe thunderstorm. And Grandma said, see, I told you. He noticed that he was out, and he came to tell him to get back, not to put fear into you. So you see, we had stories for everything. And those stories was to help us to overcome our fears and not be afraid. You see, man has created fear. Man has created fear. And the Creator didn't create fear. He created all these stories to help us to get through. And so this is why they're always saying, remember when? Remember when? Oh, we had always, even when we were teenagers, we had a story. And it's amazing because no matter where you travel, they seem to have the same character. Did you have the hoof person in your territory? The hoof. The person that had hoofs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had them. Still around, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was, we were always told about him. And that's the reason why we used to have to come in just as it started getting dark. And they would call him Jim Nadeau, which means the devil. Jim Nadeau, which means the devil. He who walks with hooves. Mm. And we were always told about him and what that, especially when people were partying. That's where he'd hang out. That's where that guy would hang out. And a lot of the things that we were told growing up, and they said something about the ace of spades. Mm-hmm. And they said if you cut a hole in that ace of spades, because it looks like a keyhole after you cut it out. They said if you look through that when there's a party going on or a dance going on or there's booze and bad things going on, he said, you look through that, you'll actually see him in there. That's what we were told. And they also told us about those cards.
Mm-hmm.
Don't play cards late at night, we were told. Don't play cards late at night. They'd say. The devil will come and play cards with you if you play too long at cards. So we were always told to put the cards away properly. Put them where nobody can see them. And that's what we did. And again, like I said, it's one of those stories that we heard when growing up from my aunt. My aunts actually is the ones told us those stories about the devil and the man, the one with the hooves. And they said that there was one story I remember being told, and I believe it was my aunt who told that. I can't remember if it was her or somebody else, but anyway, they said that they were sitting on the hall step here in my community, an old hall that we used to have fun in. And he said that a man came walking by them, and he said that he had a hat, and a big long coat. And they said that he went up the stairs. It's what they noticed when he was going up the stairs. It wasn't somebody with regular feet. It was a person with hooves going up into the party with the rest of them. They said that they took off. They went home. And I just can't remember who they were that told us that story, but that story always stays in my, when I hear about things like that, that's one story, one of the stories that we were told about that. And that was to tell us, to keep us away from those kind of things, those parties, those wild parties. And I believe that. I believe that that's true. It is true. And because our elders and our teachers, our aunties and uncles, our grandparents, our grandfathers and grandmothers never lied about those things. They were actually, some of them were actually witness to it. And this is some of the stories that we hear about these things, right? And then we hear about other things that I remember going home late one night. That's when I was my drinking days. That was my drinking days. And this was probably maybe 1 or 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And this little trail I walked on, there was a hydro pole there. And when I got closer to the hydro pole, I seen somebody standing. I still remembered going home. I seen somebody standing there. And I walked by him and I said, "Anin, hello." Never said anything. Then I turned around. Whoever that was gone. I went into the house and told my dad, "Waya giab ma," I said to him, "I saw someone." He said that again. He said it was the devil that chased you. And I thought, oh my goodness, And I thought he was just joking around. So I told my aunt about that. Of course, I got scolded. Because I was drinking. And I told her that story. Then, so you think that would have scared that out of me. But again, like I said, my dad, my aunts, and all those people that know about those stories, they didn't lie about those stories. Those stories, what they saw and what they were told growing up, they were the same stories all the way through at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about the hoof guy, he's everywhere. He's everywhere where people gather or cause trouble, and he's waiting. And they say Bobby or somebody says he's waiting for you. And I'm trying to. I remember that one. I remember being told that. So I finally asked, what is he waiting for? Why is he waiting? Well, he says he's wanting to take somebody with him.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they said. He's ready to take somebody with him. A few days later, one of our band members passed away. And I thought, oh my goodness, I hope he didn't go where I think he's gone. But, as young people, we don't ask any more questions regarding those things and why people pass on. But, when you hear the stories from the old folks in my growing up days, it makes you think, because you never know what's out there. Like Grandma Renee says about that snake, when those thunder beings come. When those snakes come out, this is when the thunder beings start to move across the above creation.
Yeah.
The sky world. They come through the sky world, and then they sound their voices. They sound all these things, and what they're doing is they're chasing those evil things back into where they came from.
Yes.
Back into the holes that they came from. And we're not trying to scare you. It's just some of the things that we learned growing up. Those are some of the things we learned growing up. And for me, I told my children some of my stories about what I saw, what I heard, and what I felt growing up. Well, they understand, and of course, it's modern technological devices now, and who's going to bother me this way? But again, like that, like Grandma Renee says, these are the things that the thunder beings chase away to protect us, and they do.
Mhm.
They do protect us, and you have to have faith in them. I have faith in those thunder beings, because I know what they can do, because I was told what they do. Right, Renee?
All right. That man that walked in our communities had like a top hat and long coat.
Yeah.
And some had referred him like a undertaker. No. And along the river, there was always a path, the toll path, I guess. And there was always these stories of not being out late at night. My grandma had called him a discipliner. The uncle, he's out there. And that's what uncles are supposed to be doing, is to discipline you. And so they had called him uncle. And this relationship we had was, when you saw him or when you heard him, it was like to bring back your teachings. Am I supposed to be out? And that's why we'll go back to, I'm going to share a story. You see, that a long time ago, when all creation was just being made, there was all the animals and all creation were before the one who makes all things. And so each one of them presented what they're going to do for us, for the children that were to come. All of them spoke, and he told them, I'm going to take care of them. Oh, I can do this for them. Oh, I can do this for them. So that, after a while, there was so many of them. After a while, someone had fallen asleep because he had listened to all their stories. He heard so much, and he drifted off to sleep. He went to sleep. He was in a deep sleep. Then all of a sudden he went, and he woke up. He looked around, all the way around, and he looked and he saw that he was the only one. And he felt ashamed, because the Creator was sitting there, the one who made all things. He was sitting there just patiently. He just waited for him to wake up. And he oh, don't worry. He says, it's okay that you went to sleep. Oh, he felt embarrassed. He says, but the one who created all, he says, no, that's okay. He says, I forgot one thing, and I'm glad you did go to sleep. He says, because I got a job for you. And his eyes went really big, and he goes, Who? Who? So that if you see the owl at night, that's his message. That's his duty. Who's not at home? Who's not in bed? So if you see that owl at night, he's watching over you. He's reminding you you're not supposed to be out late at night. And so that was one of the stories when we would hear the owl and we go, because he can turn his head right around and he can look on both sides and he can tell who's out there, who's not at home. And so that was one of the greatest stories. I always like to share that story because when you hear that story, it talks about being taken care of, somebody looking after us. That, we're not supposed to be out there. We're supposed to be resting. So we have a lot of stories like that. And they were a form of disciplining us so that that we couldn't get, someone was looking out for us. Someone was going to take care of us, making sure. And this is why they always stand in the background. So if your eye catches something different, it's almost like a reminder. Oh, I should go home. I know I shouldn't be here. I know I had my own experience in life when I was younger. And it's so true. Because I told my dad later, and he says, you were supposed to be home. He says, so I always think of that. He says, they're here. And I think when I hear those stories and how they want to remind us that where are we to be? And it was so nice to know that, gee, somebody cares for me. Somebody wants to look after me. Someone is going to prevent me from doing something that I shouldn't be doing. And so even along the river, we have these stories. And I grew up along the river, and it's a good thing my grandma told me these stories, and my uncles and the neighbors would tell their stories. And they would talk about this long grass along the banks of the river. And they like to dance. You'll see them. They're in the river. And they like to dance. And they said, so be careful. Because when they get a hold of you, you must learn. And I said, what do you mean? And so my grandma says, someday you're going to be out there swimming. Someday they may get a hold of you. They'll get a hold of you. And I go, whoa. She says, I want you to remember this. She says, when your legs come across, when you're swimming out there swimming and your legs come across those long grass, those long weeds, they have a name for them in it. And she says they when you're moving, they grab. It's like someone is going to grab a hold of you. And if you have fear, they're going to pull you down. And so the more you struggle, the more they're going to hang on to you. They're going to be really tight and strong, she says. So what you got to do, you got to overcome your fear at that moment because you feel like you're going to be pulled in. She says you have to let yourself just go limp. And she says, when you go limp, they untangle and you can float away. Oh, I was so grateful for that. Because you see, one time I had gone out with my cousin, my brother. We were out swimming in a lake. And we were racing across the lake. And we turned around and we come back. Oh, I was ahead of them. And I was, all of a sudden I got a cramp. Oh, that cramp. And I started to sink. I started to come down because my cramp and all that hit. And as soon as I came down, there was that long grass. It had grabbed a hold of me because I was trying to kick to make that my leg release that knot that I had, that cramp I had. And then it got a hold of me and it was hanging on to me, and I was going down and I come back up and I said, okay. And I just let that go and I become very limp, and I was able to, it let go. And so I managed to get back to the shore, and I'm very grateful that they had told these stories. They told these stories so that whenever we're in a situation, we could get out of them. Whenever we are challenged, we can get out of them. And so this is what I've heard many stories about, being on the road late at night, and when they would be parked and they would be drinking, and they would say there would be someone that walked. Someone would see someone walking, coming towards them, and then it was just like whew, they were gone. Or sometimes their car would just completely stop. It was to tell them almost to go home. They're not supposed to. If you continue to do this, there might be consequences. So I'm very grateful for those stories of long ago, because that is why a lot of the grandmas and the grandpas are still here. It's because of those stories. And that's why we wanted to share these stories, these times of hard times. And they all said there, even when there was going to be disaster, this one would make, it was like a shadow would come. Or it would be a cry. And they said the cry would go throughout the whole reserve. But it was to tell us it was something big was coming. And so this is very, very important about us, knowing that we have, they're still here. And people have heard, it was like, some people have said it was a skeleton. And that's true, because the cry of the skeleton going through the reserve, it told us of disaster coming. And this ain't the first time we've had something like this pandemic. We've had it through many, many years. In fact, this is what happened because it came across from the ocean, from across the water, because they were not in a place of respecting. They lived in a lot of fear. And so there was many plagues, and most of you remember about the Black Death. And it was so amazing because today, when I was, just before this, I was listening to the news, and there was a instructor was saying, our children should have heard of these stories long ago. They should have heard these stories that we had pandemics before. We've had these challenges, so they would know how to that you can get through them. So I remember how they would talk about these times, and because I do genealogy, and you find, and there was a lot of death at that time, little ones passing, young ones, old ones, and it was recorded. This became the story. This is when the pandemic came. This is when all these things. So when we hear these stories, just trying to keep them in the back of your mind, because one day they're going to help you, and today they're going to help all of us, because the stories are going to be passed on, and you are going to be the ones to share those stories. So I'm going to turn it back over so he can give me some more clues what to talk about. So,
Oh, just talking about that. I know. Now I lost my train of thought here. A lot of the stories, a lot of the things that I was told were told by my aunt and uncles, and mostly my aunts, though, because they live right next door to us. And one of them was that swimming. And I remember my Aunt Olive. Aunt Olive was her name. And she was the one who kind of told me this one. And we told her that we had gone swimming the night before, at night, off the dock. Oh man, she scolded us. How did she say that? Why did you do that? You're not supposed to.
Uh-oh, Renee, I think he's frozen. Are you frozen? Oh.
For a change, I'm not frozen.
That's a good. Oh, there you go.
Oh, there we are. Anyway, where was I? Now I got to start over again. I'm going to start last week's story. No.
So they were
Anyway, so yeah, so she scolded us for that. Myself and one of my cousins, and because we went up there, I don't know why we went there, but I told her that we had gone swimming the night before, and she was pretty upset. Why did you do that? You're not supposed to swim at night. And then she'd say, "Bayawok, she said, there's things out there that travel at night in the water. He says, you don't know what's out there. He says that she said to us stories about people that had drowned in Georgian Bay over her time when she was young. And they never found them. And so we think, and then she'd start talking a little bit about what she believed or what she was told. It might have been what it was that may have taken them. And that's that big serpent.
Mm-hmm.
The serpent that swims in Georgian Bay, Lake, all the Great Lakes. And I said, oh my goodness. We never, I don't think I ever swam again at night. I don't think I ever did it again after that, because what she told me was to protect me from drowning, was to protect us, my family, to be safe is what it was. Those stories protected us. Those stories really looked after us, and they kind of paved the way to how some people used to live. And I'm really thankful for my aunts, because they told me a lot of stuff. I had an Aunt Nora when the thunder beings came. She told us and she'd say, "Bidwo damok." The thunder beings are coming. They're sounding their voice. That's basically what she said. Bibi nigik, come on in. I only live probably just about not too far from her house. I was only probably about a 30-second walk. But she wouldn't let me go home because those thunder beings were coming. They're getting closer and closer and closer. And then I seen her when I came in the door, what she did. I saw her get this frying pan. She put it on her wood stove. Her stove was going because they had to cook, right? The frying pan got hot, and then she sprinkled this. I didn't know what it was at first when she did that. And I looked at her for a moment. I didn't say anything. I didn't say nothing to her. She just said to me, "When might have been, go sit down." Well, then you could smell that after. I didn't ask her right away what that was. It's not till probably a couple of days later when I went over to get something. And I asked her what that was she burnt. She said it was cedar. And she said that medicine there is a protection from those thunder beings that were coming because of what they had to do. The job they had to do was to chase the evil clean the earth from everything. Clean it all up. And she said you have to sit very still. And then I noticed something else too that she was doing. They had mirrors, looking glasses, or those mirrors, mirrors. I'll say mirrors. I think she had two of them in the big living room she was in, and I seen her put this cloth over top of them, on both of them, right? And I thought, why is she doing that? Then I asked one of my cousins. So they already knew, but I didn't. I didn't grow up with this was my stepfather I grew up with, but I called him my dad. And I was kind of brought into the family, his family. And that's why I called them my aunts and uncles. Anyway, so my cousin was talking. He said that because of that lightning, if it comes, apparently it reflects the lightning. That's what we were told. And so that's why they cover everything up. That's why you don't stand in front of a mirror in a thunderstorm. Otherwise, your hair will become frizzled. Oh! And then, so that's what they always said. Gegomanani bukid. Don't stand in front of the mirror in a thunderstorm. Then I realized I knew exactly what they were talking about because of the lightning might reflect and bounce off. And the things you never touch, you just sit very, very quietly when those beings go by. My dad, he always unplugged everything too when the thunder beings came. Everything, except the fridge. The fridge he left alone. But he knew that nothing would happen to that one. But anything else he unplugged. And I watched him doing that. So I asked, and he told me, because lightning travels in the ground. It travels through the ground and it comes up somewhere. That's why we have to stay inside, sit down quietly, and listen to them go by. Actually, I remember falling asleep once when a thunderstorm came by. Oh man, I could hear. I do my medicines outside my window when the thunder beings come. I offered a sage and I put some tobacco in the sage and let it burn. And I say to the thunder beings, watch over me as you go by. I am offering this medicine to you so that whatever you're chasing is taken away. So I close my window, get back and lay down, and just lay there. And sure enough, it goes by. But when you step outside, you can tell that it has been cleaned. You can actually smell the beauty of nature, of creation itself. And wow, what a feeling that was. When you just have to be there when it happens. When the thunderstorm comes, sit down, relax, and enjoy it. Just close your eyes. No matter how bad it gets, just close your eyes and have faith of that medicine that you carry. When you light your sage or you put your tobacco in your sage or offer tobacco before the thunder beings arrive, then go inside, sit down, relax. And I guarantee you'll understand what I'm talking about. Because my aunts and uncles, they told us about those thunder beings, how strong they are, how powerful they are. They're more powerful than anybody because they've been given an honor and a place where they live, they dwell. And in that time when they're needed, that's when they come. Creator probably yells out, "Hey guys, get over there. We need to clean Mother Earth again. Those darn beings are out there again. Okay, we're on our way." Oh, you hear the thunder beings coming. That's the sound you hear. Just a rumbling. Just kind of like when you're hungry, you hear your stomach rumbling. And they're hungry too, because they come by. Eh? And what they're hungry for is those medicines that people blight for them when they come by. That's what they're looking for. That's their payment. That's what I believe anyway. That's their payment when they come by. When you put your sage, you light it up, look out your window, raise it, and honor them as they go by. Put your tobacco bowl down or whatever and lay down and let them come by. There was a story that we were told a while back about the thunder beings. I don't know if I told you this already, about an older couple living on the island just up a ways from where I live. And they used to tell us the stories about the thunder beings too and what they saw. And they actually pointed out the window and said, "We saw something running across the field when the thunderstorms came," he said. And we asked, what did you see? They said they saw a lion. And, we thought about that. I thought about that for a while. And the guys that were there, because we had to stay there at that house that day, just for a while till the thunderstorms went by. And they said, you guys hurry home now, they said. And so I went and asked my aunt about that. And she told me the same story. She told me the same story. I guess sometimes the lion becomes evil. And this is what they're chasing. An evil spirit dwelling in And it's funny how a lot of people kind of, what do you call, yeah, right. Oh, yeah, right. But remember what we said at the beginning. Our elders and our aunties and uncles don't lie. What they saw was real. Even though I didn't see it, they're telling me that story. That's because the thunder beings were chasing them across. Sometimes they see a reptile or what do you call it, a big snake, chase it back and to where it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we go back to the swimming. I remember one time that a lot of kids got yelled at because they swam in a thunderstorm. They swam in a thunderstorm. Remember that story? My mom told me that. She asked me, did I go swimming that day? I said, no, I wasn't there. Because I was with my cousin reading comic books. And I heard about that there's a few kids that got, they were fortunate. They were very lucky that they didn't get hit by anything. But apparently that was quite a news story on Christian Island back in the day when I was growing up. That kids, you're not allowed to swim in thunderstorms.
Mm-hmm.
Never ever. Yeah, so those are some of the things that some of the stories, like the spirit chasers. Those are the thunder beings that chase those evil spirits off the earth, and they also clean the earth. They kind of like a what do you call it? Invisible mop.
Mm-hmm.
They're mopping up, they're cleaning things up. So remember, when you hear a thunderstorm, relax, sit down, offer your medicines, and hear them go by. You can't see them, but you can hear them. Oh, you can see the lightning, sure, yeah. But just relax and have faith. Did I stir anything else in your head there, my dear?
Yeah, my head is just nodding. Oh, another one. It's just how it was a long time ago. One would start a story and then another one would tell because they were reminded of another story. And then it took all night, probably just on one subject, because a lot of people were starting to remember those stories and it was so amazing. And so that's why I said, when my head nods, and I remember another one. And in our way, we had this, that was true. We were told again, the children being special and being taken care of. And so we had this story where there was it was in a village long time ago. And in this village there was a family out doing husking corn. I mean, taking corn off the stalk. And the thunderstorm came and it was just like he said, made the noise. And the older man says, "Come on," he was telling Axel, "Hurry, get off the fields. It's coming." But there was a young girl. She was trying to hurry up and finish, but she wanted to make sure she had her basket full. And she managed to fill it up. But just then the thunder beings came by and they got a glimpse of her just as she went in. And so the thunder being came around again later on. He says, "Oh, I'm going to go and visit again. I want to go and see that young woman again. She looks, she's pretty. She's very pretty." And so she's out there harvest time and she's gathering up the corn again. And he goes by, he comes and the thunder beings come again. And he says, I'd like to take her home, bring her home. And so again, the father, the old man, the grandpa was saying, "Axel," telling him, "Hurry up and get off the field. We got the thunder beings are coming." And again, she always liked to be very dedicated in her work. She always wanted to make sure she had enough. And so she was, because her parents had taught her very well. And so she was making sure she didn't leave anything left there. She was going to take it. And so again, she left. And, but this time, just as she was going to go into get up to the end of the field, the thunder beings came and they came close to the ground and they swooped her up and they took her off up to the sky world. And after the clouds and the storm got over, they were looking for her. They went and looked and searched all over the fields for her, looking for her, but they couldn't find her. Couldn't find her. Oh, the mother was sad. She was crying for days. So wasn't the father. So wasn't her family. They were out looking for her, and they were calling her name, but she wasn't nowhere to be found. And meanwhile, in the sky world, she's seen all this, and she was just very troubled. She was very sad. But the thunder being, he really loved her, and he was giving. Every time he went out, he would bring her gifts, to make her smile. And he'd start telling her stories, and pretty soon, she learned that he really cared for her. And so she said, I'm okay now. I understand. And so, but he said to her, I'd like you to be my partner. But if we were to have a child, that child will be of two worlds. And she says, yes. And he says, but I would like you to stay with me. And she says, yes, I will. And so she eventually had a little boy. And the father would take him on that run. And that little boy would come home and he would tell his mom, oh, you should have seen what I saw, Mom. I saw. They were like people like us. I mean, you, Mom. They were like us. She would say, yeah. She would say, that must have been your family. What do you mean, my family? You see, I also come from there. And then she became very sad. And she told her husband that she wanted to go back and see her family. She was very sad that she didn't hardly eat. And so her husband, he said, I love you. I love you so much, but I want you to be happy. So I will take you back to your family. And so the thunderstorm came again. But this time they had left her and this little boy. He told her, he says, I'm going to let you take our son. You will teach him of these ways of the earth, and I will have taught him of the sky world. And he said, if anybody has raised their voice against him, he says, I will take him back. I will take him back. She said, I promise. And so when the storm had left, there she came walking out of the field. And her father and her mother, were taken back. Who is this girl? And they looked, who's this little one? And they looked and they saw that it was their daughter. And they went running to her, and they were just overwhelmed by all this joy of seeing their daughter had returned home. And they said, where have you been? What? And all these questions. And she says, I will tell you in time, but know that I am home. I am okay. I'm safe. I've been safe. And so that's all you need to know right now. Oh, and this is my son, she said. And he is very special. He comes from two worlds. He comes from that sky world, and he comes from here. They said, oh, he is a very special one, huh? We will treat him with great honor. And so time went on. The little boy, he was growing. He learned many ways of the people on the earth plane. But he also felt that desire every time the thunder being calls. He's, there's my dad. Oh, he'd wave and he'd be out there, and every time that thunder, as soon as that rumble, he would run outside. But at that time, they had been told stories. Don't you go outside. Don't you run out there, or you're going. There's power out there. There's much power that you don't understand. Oh, he says, I'm okay. And he snuck past his grandmother, and she hollered at him, get back in here. And just as she said that, whoosh, he was gone, just like a lightning. He was gone. And so this is why he came to walk upon the earth, to know how to take care of us, because he had the teachings from his mom, and he had the teaching of the sky world. And so I strongly believe that this is why that relationship is so strong between us. And this is why in our way, we would, every time that thunder being comes, the rumble, we're to go outside, and especially the first thunder being, we are supposed to go outside and take our gift, and thank Him for cleaning, our home. And as He said, it's just like a big broom cleaning our home, and this is how I was told. But also, I like how you mentioned of that shadow. They said was that they had referred it as a lion, and so I have done a lot of listening to stories in our territory. I mean, in Canada, we had big cats, so that's how they would have referred them to. We had these big cats, and we have them in our creation story. And that big cat is like a metaphor of negativity, jealousy, greed. And so when you said that, I said, that's why He comes, and they get rid of all that negativity that is out there to clean the earth of the toxic language environment. Wow.
Wow. Nice story. I like that. Got any more? No.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, going back, like, that is a great story. I like that. And it kind of reflects back to the yelling of our children.
Yes.
And that I remember growing up that my grandmother really never yelled at me actually I lived with my grandparents for a while. I can't remember how many years I was there with them. But she never really yelled. She just kind of scolded me because, my sister and I used to live with her, and then they used to have a garden, and lived in an old log house, and my grandfather, and but she would never scold me. If I did something bad, she'd pat me in the butt though, but she would not yell. And I think that what Renee's saying there, that we way even before, probably before my time, they said that nobody ever yelled at each other. That was before my time. My aunts and uncles, they said that when they were growing up. But actually, my aunt Olive, they would always be taught something. It never. It was always something new. They taught us everything, and then I finally realized what it was that they were being taught, and that's that how to survive their own life on their own path. Yes. Because once you get married and you start your own family, you take what you've learned from your parents or your grandparents or your aunties and uncles, and you take it with you, and then that teaching begins, and it keeps rolling like that. I used to listen to her talk about different things. My Aunt Nora had a little bit of trouble in hearing, but she could talk to you. She could hear her. You had to yell a little bit louder for her to hear. You'd let her know that you understand. And when they used to always say, "When a koaba mo binojis," look after that little one with care. That's what they said. Because you never know that something might come along, like what happened in the story that Grandma Renee told. That because those little ones are gifts from our Creator. Binojis, the little ones, babies. And I told that story about how sometimes that you're feeling I don't know, you're feeling out of sorts. Let's say that. I'm just going to take it to that word, sorts. And you have little ones, maybe a year-old, maybe 2-year-old, maybe a 3-year-old. You put them down to bed, put them in their crib, get them ready to sleep, and then all of a sudden, bang, they're sleeping. And every once in a while, you got to look in. You got to look in there to see if they're still there. And when you look at them and you see them sleeping, you watch them for a while and you see beauty itself. I have a friend who posted a picture on Facebook. She's holding her child on top of her. Now that's the sacredness of life right there. That is very sacred, a mother and child. The mother holding on to the child on her chest while she sits back. And we used to hear those, when a baby cries, you got to let the baby cry for a little while. But why is the baby crying? So then you think to yourself, well, got to be hungry. Yeah. Got a diaper change? Yeah. But when they're crying, sometimes you have to pick them up and hold them close because they need that. Just right now, like we need that. We need that now because of this pandemic keeps us from hugging each other. Oops, too tall. No. keeps us from hugging each other, shaking our hand, or even big, But we have to think about those children. And when the stories come out about children, and sometimes these little ones leave early. They're only here for a short while. And that's devastating to the parents. And when I hear people yelling at their kids, it kind of gets me angry sometimes. The kid don't deserve that. When I was growing up, yes, I got scolded. Yes, they said things to me that try to put me on the straight and narrow. And a lot of the story about the young boy being taken back by the thunder beings is a prime example of how we have to take care of our children. And there's so many stories about those. We talk about the little people living in our communities. I don't mean the ones that live in houses. I mean the ones that dwell out there in creation. And we think about all those stories about them. What is it? Why are they here? Well, they were here first, probably. They were part of something, probably. We don't know, but they're here. But I think that Creator sent them. Creator sent them to watch over us, I believe. And they were given a task. They were given a task. Like when I go to the other side of the island to offer some food sometimes I can't eat it all. So I go to the other side, drive over there, put everything in a pan or cardboard box and spread it out on some nice flat rocks and put it on top. Put some tobacco to the side, and I talk with the water spirit first. I am offering this medicine, this tobacco, and some of this food to you. Then I turn and I face the trees and the animal kingdom that's in there. And I say, I brought some food. I am offering this to you as well. And then the final one is Hanishnabinsak. That means, okay, little people, I brought something for you as well. The gift of tobacco. Because that's what they look for. They look for those coppers. Remember I told you about those copper things? Was it our last session, Renee?
Yeah.
About the copper? And sometimes you got to leave those things behind. And my aunts always used to do that when I used to see them. They didn't, what they did with their left. I remember this one time my Aunt Nora, actually. I was over there and I went and helped her with something, I think. And I seen her putting food into the stove, into the wood stove. And I wondered, why did she do that? So I asked, "This shamak kobe me ajik," she said. I'm feeding the ones that are going by, she'd say. I remember that one. It's not often they did it, but they did it once in a while. It's kind of like when we have our sacred fires,
Mhm.
and we offer the food to the spirit. This is what she was doing. I asked my aunt Olive about that once. She says, "Oh, don't worry about it." She says, "That's what she does." Okay, but I've only seen her do that the one time. So there must have been something going on, or something going to happen. And that's those are the things. But I never really asked about that anymore after that. But I know that my aunt would look after me because I just lived only 30 seconds from her house, about a 30-second walk. And every time they didn't see the smoke come out of my chimney, she'd come knocking on the door to see if I was all right. Remember, I used to drink. And, and she'd come in. She knew had been drinking. Of course, as an aunt, she peppered me with, you better quit drinking now. Gee, don't do that to yourself all the time, like that. Because she was trying to knock the evil spirit out of me, and that's that booze that was inside me. And I really appreciated that from her. She looked after me. Oh, I used to get them. We used to get them mad. Oh my God. My brothers and I. Oh, they'd see three of them come walking towards the house. Three ants coming. Oh God. Boy, we'd get a tongue lashing. They tell us, put that thing away, put those things away, clean this house up. And then later on, one of them would come back, make sure that we did exactly what we were told to do, and we did. Then she would sit down and tell us in a quiet voice, and tell us that you got to stop this. You got to stop this. Because and then I finally realized how we were hurting them. Because they were our storytellers. They were the ones giving us their knowledge. And what we were doing, we were disrupting what they were telling us. When I think about it sometimes, I laugh at sometimes because we used to hide on them. But they'd find us. How is it possible? How is it possible that people find somebody on an island, yet the island is so big, but that back then we didn't have that many houses. We were easy to find. When I lost when my aunt started dying, passing away, my last aunt died in the same year my mom died. And with her went a lot of stuff. Oh, she was a great lady. She was a great lady. I'd go visit her every once in a while, make sure she was good and stuff like that. And I remember just one day I went to visit her, and we were sitting there. We were talking. I had coffee with her and stuff, and we were talking away. She was talking about the old things, about the old days, and how things were when they started to grow the gardens, right? When they're getting ready to plant. She told me the stories about how they used to plant. Everybody had gardens back then. A family would go help another family plant, and another family would go help the other family plant. And then there's about 10 families that are helping each other planting, getting things ready. And she said that they used to, and then they'd all get together. They'd go to each farm, help gather those things till it was all gone. And she used to tell me all this. And then they had what they call Achievement Day in October, Thanksgiving weekend. And they bring all their stuff out, put it there. They'd bake pies, they'd bake cakes. We'd have races, you know, running, running. And you could go all to every table and see the pies, the tarts, everything, the vegetables, the whole thing. Everything was there. And she used to tell us those stories about when they used to go gather those. They would always offer something first before they started picking, because this food was going to take care of them. The spirit of the plants were going to take care of them. Oh, I used to hear that story with her was probably one of those memorable I've had with her. Her name was Aunt Audrey. I called her Aunt Audrey. I called her Auntie. I didn't call her by her name. I called her Auntie.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden she'd start laughing at me. And then you know that Don Bernstick, how he shows how women laugh? Oh, like that. Well, she did pretty much the same thing. Anyway, so she says, oh, I said, honey, what's the matter? She says, oh, she said, you're going to be 60 years old, she says. And I thought, what? She's laughing at my age already. I'm not even 60. Because she kept an eye on us. And she knew exactly when everybody's birthday was. She knew when everybody's birthday was. I was the third oldest in the family of all my aunt's children. Me, my dad, my aunt, 3 aunts, and all their children. I was the third oldest in the group. But I was adopted into that family. And boy, it wasn't long before I got treated like one of the family, because one of the kids would get to do something that wasn't right. And guess what? We all got it. We all got it. I didn't do nothing. Biggie to a Babajan, you come here too, they should say. So I'd walk over there. And of course, we all got not a strap or anything, but we just got yelled at a little bit and told us that not to do those things again. But that was funny though, one person would get in trouble. We'd all get scolded. But I wish I could live back there again. I really wish. Go back there in time and live that life again. Oh my God. I think my life would have been different. I think my life would have been different. It was my fault that my life went the other way. Not my aunties, not my mom, not my dad, not my grandparents. It was me. I own up to it. I have to, because it was me. All the stories they told me, I should have listened to them. I didn't. But I'm here. There's a reason why I got here. My aunts that before they passed, they helped me through some of the hard stuff, especially when we lost my dad. And they were pretty good. We all stuck together because it was that family, right? And the storytellings. Like Grandma Renee says, they could talk all night. But sometimes as kids, we used to sit down at my grandparents' place when we lived with my grandparents. We used to sit down on the floor and listen to them talking. Because they spoke the language, we spoke the language. We understood what they were saying. Then around 7 o'clock, my grandmother would say, I'll get ready for bed. 7 o'clock, it's still daylight out there, Grandma. And, but we'd go. She'd put us down for the night. And then we could hear them talking, laughing. And then I'd fall asleep, and I don't even know what time they went home. Those were those days, those good days when you hear those stories. Always listen to a story, no matter how small it is, or no matter how big it is. because there's something in those stories that'll help you in your life. Maybe you don't understand the story, but if you use these things here on the side of your head and these in the front of your head, you'll understand what the stories mean. Am I right there, Grandma Renee?
Absolutely. Oh, I was using my television set, going through all those stories, and oh gosh, yeah. No matter what nation we come from, no matter what area we live in, it seems like we were all given stories to guide us, and our grandparents. I am really happy that I grew up without TV. I mean, my early ages, we never had TV. Only when we had lived in a city for a while did I get exposed to TV, but most of the time I would go to my grandma's, and like you, I would go to my grandma's, and it was a treasure to be with my grandma. Both my parents were the baby of each family, and what was my duty as being the oldest was my grandmas, if they had gotten sick, I would go and stay with them. And because of that time, I learned a lot of stories. And because there was no hydro, there was none of the convenience, but I never ever got lonely. I just thrived in that environment because I think she was grooming me for today. And I acknowledged them because they had so many stories to keep you. It always seemed like if you had a problem or you were asking why, they all seemed to have an answer in a good way. And that's so true. Your grandpas and grandmas, when they, our parents said, if anybody in the neighborhood saw you doing anything, they have the right to reprimand you.
Oh, yeah, right.
They have that.
Yeah.
It's just because that's your family. This is your community. Is if they scold you, he says it's important because they want to see you grow up to be well. And it's so amazing because even in our way, we were always told to always honor and respect the ones that were honor and respect our community, respect each other. And so if we had gotten in trouble, you wouldn't say anything, but Ma knew everything. She would know. She knew before when we got home. We didn't even have telephones then, but we knew.
Geez, yeah.
And we'd be lying down, and she would say, "All right, what did you do?" I learned later on it was because our own face told on us. We know when we had to come into the house, and we know we did wrong. It's our own conscience that showed them. And that's what I found out later on, being a mother, you can read their conscience. But I was amazed because my mom we didn't have a phone or anything like that. But if we had been with a group of kids that were misbehaving, Mom would go, "Okay, what did you do?" And go, "Which one of you snitched on us?" And it was just like mother's instinct. Mother knows. And so we were always told to honor them and respect them. And even though they weren't blood relatives, anybody that was old as our parents were our aunties and uncles. Anybody that was old as our grandparents, we would call them our grandpa. We would always honor them. And it's so beautiful the way that we were taught, because when I became older and I came back home to live, it was so nice because they welcomed me home, and it was just like an extended family. When my parents passed on, I had my neighbors. I had my next door neighbor, and they would always talk, and it was just like having my parents with me again. And it was just like, it was so nice. It was so nice. And so when my grandparents, when they disciplined us, they made us sit down on a chair and they talk to us in a real quiet voice. And man, you're ready to get, I can take anything. But no, because you know why they spoke that way? It's because you're never to raise your voice. If you scream and holler at your child, this goes up. And so we were supposed to talk real soft so that you're almost leaning forward. You're listening to them. And they talk about metaphors. Oh, gosh, they made us really make sense of what we were doing wrong. And I like how my auntie, my grandpa's sister, Aunt Gertie, there was a time when growing up, when I was becoming a young woman, and me and my mom got into an argument. Rarely, I mean, it was just like she was an ace mom. Anyways, she always backed me up, but it was this one time that I bit my tongue, and I walked away, and I was mad, I was upset, and I went down to my grandpa and grandma's, and I knew how important it was not to lash out at my mom, and that's why I kept it in, and went back. Now I went back to my grandma's, and my auntie's was there, my auntie, and she said, "What's wrong?" I said, I almost lashed out at my mom. And I said, I lashed out, and I didn't want, but I didn't. I said, I didn't. And she says, I'm glad you didn't. She says, your mom is going to be your best friend. Your mom, all your other friends are going to drift away or get married, go off on their own. She says, but your mom, she'll always be your best friend. She'll always back you up. She'll always be there. And I thank her for that, because she says, and that was proven so true. My mom she was my supporter. She was there when I went through rough times. She was there. And my mom had a very special way of acknowledging our mistakes. When we were young, when she would discipline. It was, wait till your dad gets home. But Dad would be away working, and she knew she had to do her duty. And to this day, I have done the same thing that she has done. She says, whenever we were bad, we were disciplined. And that's one of the things I asked my grandpa about. I said, why is there such thing as discipline? He said, he says, you know what? That's the best words you should ever hear, is when your parents say no to you. He says, because they know they had somewhat more experience than you, and they know what things can happen to you. And this is when they say no, it's like they want to protect you and hold you back from getting hurt. No. And I remember one time, I thought my father was the strictest father in the world, like everybody else. I thought, my father here, you're so mean, because you wouldn't let me stay out. And being the oldest, I had it rough. I was their first training lesson. And so I had to, it's a good thing I had my grandparents. They would always talk to me and put me back in understanding. And so one time I got invited to my cousin's birthday party, and my dad said, you got to be home by 11. I said, little longer, Dad, please, a little longer. And he said, well, 11:30. And I went, you know how we go, a little longer. He says, if you're not home by 12 o'clock, he says, there's consequences. Sure enough, I kept looking at the watch. I gotta go. I felt like Cinderella. I gotta go. I gotta go. Oh my gosh. And I good thing I did, because here comes my dad. He was coming. And I snuck around and I got into the house before he stopped. But that was a very powerful, teaching for me, because as I was saying, I gotta leave. I gotta leave. And a friend of mine says, I envy you. And I said, what? She said, I envy you. She said, nobody says no to me. She says, what your dad is doing, he's showing how much he cares for you. And I wish somebody had said no to me. So you see, even your best friend, your buddy, your friends can be your teachers too, because they learned those lessons too. So discipline was very important. This is why we have our stories. Discipline was very important to us. And even we have to discipline ourselves. Yeah. Why do you think we were wrapped as baby? We were to be wrapped so tight. That was to help us to discipline ourselves. Because if we got out of our blanket, that means we took over control. And that shows the parents, you need to wrap them tightly. You need to wrap them tightly, because they're going to get out of hand later on in life. Ooh, this is why they had those cradle boards and moss bags, was to make sure that we were disciplining ourselves. We disciplined ourselves. That was so important. It was so important that knowing that we were special. We were very special. And that's why the grandmothers, I like that story. One day I was telling this story. I said, the animals are always watching us. That's your duty from the one who had created all. I said, he asked at that time of creation, remember when I was telling you that story? And so all the animals said, oh, we'll watch them. We'll take care. And you notice the animals, they're always kind of on a sideline watching you when you're playing. And one day I said there was, all of them have been given have been given a teaching to do for us. And I said, when you're out playing and if you got your language is not good, you look up in the tree and you'll see a squirrel, and a squirrel's going like this. Where do you think us grandmothers got that? That's how we were disciplined a long time ago. If you heard your grandma or your mom or your auntie going like that, they go, it was to remind you. That's how easy it was to be disciplined a long time ago. And I was telling this story while I was at the treatment center, and I was telling how the animals are always being looking after us, and they try to prevent us from getting into trouble. And then just like all of a sudden there was a young person there. He goes, oh, that's right, Grandma. That's right. He says, I was on my way to do a drug deal. He says, I kept hearing this squirrel following me. He would go. He says, it seemed like he was jumping from tree to tree, just kept following me. And he says, even on a telephone line, he was following me. And he says, you know what? I got to get some drugs. And he says, I got caught. He says, dang, I should have listened. He said, should have listened. That squirrel was trying to keep me out of trouble. So you see, we are always being looked after, and nature is always doing that to us, and especially the little ones. This is why we use that soft voice. This is why my grandma said, you sit down. And this is why we had cradle boards, was that we didn't put our children below and talk to us like this. We put them equally. That's what my grandpa says. He would always say, Saja, Saja. And so you would have to sit, and he would sit right across from you. And he'd be sitting in his chair, and he just laid back, and he would say, no, what's this going on? And then you would start to open up and start to talk to you in a good way. And he would remind you how precious you are. he would remind you that it's tough being a parent. He says it's really tough being a parent. He says their job is to always say no till you are able to have all those stories inside you, all those teachings inside you. Then they can say, but they'll always come back when you need them. They'll always be there. And that's why we have our dreams. All you have to see is like this. And that's how my grandma came to help me to stand back upright. How I was to remember those stories. Because my grandma, that's just how she scolded me. She scolded me, but just by doing that on her finger, you know that's wrong. She didn't have to say anything. All she did was with that finger, and she showed me. And so this is why our spirit is so, so gentle. And that's why our people always talk to our children in that good way, the soft voice. What do they have now? Dog whisper, horse whisper. Well, they should have some parent whisper. Because that's how we need to talk to our children. And I like how he talked about the baby, and he reminded me of that, how smart the babies are. That's what my grandma had said. The babies are really intelligent. And when they cry, they know, she says, they know how to take control. You have to show them that you are the parent. Because if you don't, it's going to be chaos. And we have stories for that. And to tell that story, maybe I'll do it the next session. I'll tell that story about that discipline. And so when this baby, the baby is a very gifted person. They came to teach us unconditional love. They come to teach us so many things about our responsibility and our duty and our purpose in life is to create a safe environment. And so there are many stories how the babies, they are very special. And one of the stories that I always like to hear is how smart the babies are. They pick up, they're so sensitive. They pick up everyone's energy. And they can tell what, and yet we think we're I don't want the baby to know how I'm feeling. The baby already knows. That's how sacred they are. The babies already know why you're upset, why you're feeling this way, why you're angry. And you know what? The baby will start to cry because it's a teaching. Teaches you to let go some of that grief. Let's go some of that grief. So that baby's going to cry and cry and cry. Meanwhile, you're going like this. Oh, what else can happen today? I'm upset. Now the baby's upset. And how, that's why the baby is upset, because the baby read your energy. And so the baby says, oh, I got to calm that mother of mine down. I got to calm her down. I got to look after my ma. So what is the baby keep crying? So what does the mother do? Mother comes and picks up that baby. Oh, shh, little one. Shh, little one. Shh. So she goes like this, and she starts rocking that baby. And you know what she's doing? She's bringing that mother back in balance. Because when we're off, our mind, our heart, and our spirit, we're up and down. So what that baby has to do is bring us back to I guess we would call them good tuning forks. You know what they have on a piano? Well, this is why we have to rock those little ones, but it's them teaching us, slow down. I am here to look after you, Mom. And so the baby will keep, the mother's not done yet. No, she's doing okay now. We'll sleep now. And so that's what it is. The baby brought the mother back in balance, so now the mother is feeling more relaxed. And so this is one of the most important teachings, that whenever we're in trauma, whenever we have fear, whenever we have that doubt and everything, is to rock ourselves. Why do you think rocking chairs were invented? That's where the grandpa and grandma have was bring back those little ones when a baby is crying. When that home is upset, is to use those rocking chairs. Rocking chairs. How simple is that? Are we lucky? So I'm turning it back to our grandpa.
I'm here now. Going back to the babies, yeah. They really are a gift, eh? And like Grandma Renee says, that they kind of have a little bit of a control on us.
Mm-hmm.
And when my grandchildren come to visit me, because they live on the other side of town here on the island, one of them will actually come and lay with me, and she'll talk to me about certain things. But I don't really understand what she's saying yet, because she has a little bit of speech problem right now, but she's growing out of it. She's growing out of it, eh? And she's the one that got that open heart surgery about a year and a half ago. She's the one that got the open heart surgery about a year and a half ago. And if I'm on my iPad and playing my games, she'll come and take it on me and play her own game, because there's a game on there she likes playing. Eh? So I have to watch her and help her. And we just sit there, and she looks up once in a while to see if I'm looking. And she grounds me.
Mm-hmm.
All these little ones, when you see the little ones, like that song I have for the children, let us help our children. And that's the best part of it, is the helping them. Because we are the older ones. They are the ones that kind of control us, make sure. But when we help them, we're giving them an opportunity to move on along this path that they have also been given. And then the next part of that song talks about wijiwada, let us go with our children. You know how the little babies, when they're small, they call out when they're ma, ma. And it sounds like a little bird calling out. So you go over there I go over there as a grandparent. Look, is she all right? Is she all right? And then, they're calling us. But when they start crawling, when the babies start crawling, they want us to go with them, because they disappear around the corner, right? And there you go, chasing them. And so they want us to go with them. Wijiwada, let us go with our children. No matter where they want to go, they're going to take you there regardless if you want to go or not. So the next part of that was Jibnada, meaning let us hold our children. Let us hold our children every once in a while, no matter how big they are. See, I'm at my age now. I can still give my daughters a hug.
Yeah.
I can still give my grandchildren a hug. But right now, I can't give anybody else a hug, but only my family. But I have extended family outside these walls, off this island. And I want to be able to hug them again. I want to be able to hold them. I want to be able to sing to them. I want to be able to help them as best I can. Because they're younger than me, they feel like they're my children as well. So when I hold them and I'm hugging them, that's what that song talks about. Jibnada benojimnan, let us hold our children. But the biggest gift given to us from our Creator and creation itself is the word love. Mm-hmm. Let us love our children regardless. Unconditional love, because they give it back to us. I remember helping my daughter once when she was having a little problem. I forget what they call that syndrome after the baby's born.
Post.
And that's it, that post thing. Not the post cereal, but that post thing. Anyway, so my wife was still here. My wife was still with me. And she was getting a little upset. I said, don't get upset. The baby knows what's going on with you. You're frustrated. Kind of like what Grandma Renee was talking about. I said, you're frustrated. Here, give her to me. I'll rock her. She'll fall asleep. So I have my own comfortable chair there and rocking her back and forth. And all of a sudden she was all quiet. She looks up at me. And then I said, okay, now it's time for you to go to sleep. So I take her to my bed. I know that was not good to do, for put her between my wife and I. But that's where she was comfortable, between the grandma and the grandpa. And she fell asleep. She didn't wake up till the next morning. She was still with us. Then, of course, she wanted her mom. Her mom was calm. And then I said to her, remember, when you get to that point, try and calm yourself down. Rock her on that chair. Don't get mad at her. She'll understand. She knows. Because she understood that unconditional love comes into play there. Right? So that song, we jiwada, let us go with, we dokwada, let us help them. We jiwada, let us go with them. So jibnada, let us hug them. And the other part is let us, and zagada, that means let us love them. And that's the whole thing that Creator gave us, that gift to know how to do all those things. Because when we left Creator's side, He gave us all those teachings. He said, I don't remember what He told me. He says, Neil, go down there, raise havoc with the people. Hold their legs, make them taller. No. But back then he did give us those tasks. Those are the tasks we talk about. Those are the teachings that we try and find and give them to our children. It's kind of like my daughter one time asked me. She said, "Dad, how did you know it's going to get windy?" I said, "I watched a weather report." And she laughs. I said, "No," I said, "I'm telling you something, because we live on an island. If the wind blows as anything over 40 to 45 kilometers an hour, the boat does not go over." So I said to her, "Well, I don't think you better go over tomorrow, otherwise you're going to get stuck in town." She says, "Why?" "Because it's going to be windy tomorrow. The boat don't travel in that kind of weather." Sure enough, the wind came up that night and it blew all day. There was no boat. And then that's when she asked me that. "How did you know?" I said, "I watched the weather. And when I listen to the weather report and I know it's going to be high winds, I don't go anywhere. I stay home." And that's what I'm trying to tell you too. We got modern technological devices that will help us now. But back in the day, when I was growing up, when the wind blew, nobody went anywhere. They stayed put. The big winds are coming. Everybody buckle down, hunker down. Let's protect our places. And that's what they would do. There was no ands, ifs, or buts. You stayed in home. You stayed inside. Because in the winter times over here, we used to have about, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet, maybe more feet of snow or more.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody got, even on the island, you could get lost if that wind was blowing 40, 50 kilometers an hour. And the winds would push that snow around. And the same thing would happen on the ice. That's what they always told us too growing up, that never walk out on the ice when it's windy or when it's snowing, because you will get lost. And we looked, and sure enough, we see that. We can't see nothing. And those were the ones that the older folks told us those stories. Because once they say, once you go out there, we'll never find you. We'll never find you. It's like that story of the bear, spirit bear. Comes out of the north. He comes out of the north. When you call upon that spirit bear to come and take these things away from us, and we put all those things, whatever we can, into the center of our sacred circle, he comes and takes those. And what he does then, he takes them up north, way up north. The spirit of the white bear takes those up north and buries them in the snow up there. And he covers it all up. All of a sudden, the winds come. And if you went to look for those things, you would never, ever find them. And that's what that means, is that he's taking some of these things away. And when he buries them, you should not look for them again because they're no longer part of that life, right? So the same thing with our grandparents, when our aunties and uncles and our grandfathers used to tell us these stories about the snowstorms on the ice. Never go out there. If you have to go visit somebody, make sure you tell everybody where you're going, was another part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Never ever go without telling somebody where you're going. Kind of like when when I was cutting wood. And my wife got always was worried about me because I went into the bush and cut wood by myself. There was one day that I got so involved in what I was doing, cutting wood for my house for the winter. And I was there and I just kept cutting, throwing the wood out so I can get a hold of it, but with the truck. I didn't even know the day was getting, the days were getting, it was getting dark. I didn't even notice that. And I'm cutting away and I'm just concentrating because it's like everything that was there was with me. I was just concentrating on trying to keep my house warm for the winter. And all of a sudden, I hear this truck coming. I see the headlights. I had two trucks. One was the one what I called my Resmobile. Wires and duct tape. Anyway, she pulls up. She says, "Hon, look, it's getting dark." I said, "What?" I looked around. Sure enough. She says, "Put your stuff in the truck. Come on, let's go home. Supper's ready." I've always been worried. She's scolding me. And I didn't get angry with her. So we drove home. She drove ahead and then I drove behind her. I just left. She just said, "We'll leave the wood. We'll come and get it tomorrow." Okay. So off we went. Got into the house. "Oh, hon," she said, "I was so worried about you," she said. So I told her my story. I was so involved in what I was doing, going to keep our house warm for the winter, that I didn't even know the daylight was going away. It was getting dark. And she says, "Don't do that again, okay? Tell me where you're going." Luckily, I told her where I was. And then a year later, she asked me, she says, "Hon, I want you to stop cutting wood now." After that incident, I guess. I didn't realize it, it might have, I think it affected her. And she never really said. She just says, "Hon, I don't want you cutting wood anymore." She says, "You're getting too old." What? And so I did. I never cut wood again. That was it. But I still burn it. And, so for me, there was two teachings in there. That I had to be very conscious of what I was doing in the bush. But I was so involved in what I was trying to knowing that I had to keep my house warm for the winter to keep my family warm was one of them. And the other one was always have control of where you are, or make sure you know what time it is, because you have people worrying about you and they think that you might got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the reasons why she asked me to stop. But again, when we go back to the children and how powerful these little ones are, though, holy mackerel, I can't understand how powerful they are. They're a true gift, a true gift. And when I saw my friend, that picture and her baby holding her baby on her chest, and I was reminded of that the sacredness of who they are, the beauty of who they are, and the beauty of a mother. And we, as a man, I never really understood the stories around women when I was growing up, but I knew they were very, very powerful people. If they could scold you from 200 yards away, boy, they're powerful. But the thing is, though, is that those stories that we hear the stories that we heard growing up are the stories that keep us alive.
Mhm.
They're the ones that protect us from all those things that might affect us in our heart. I never, myself, again, like I said, I apologize to my aunties and uncles, my mom and dad, my grandparents for drinking. I never realized how much I might have hurt them along my travel. But here I am. I got here for a reason. That was sit with Grandma Renee every once in a while, laugh about certain things, have fun doing it. And that's the beauty of our people. See, here's the thing. Here's another thing. As you were talking there, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, Creator here. We're all related because we all came from Creator. But the best part of it is that Grandma Renee's stories in her community are almost similar to my stories in my community, even though we're two separate nations.
Mhm.
And that's the beauty of life. We each have almost the same stories, different, little bit, slightly. That's why I love the people in the Six Nations. Because they tell me something. Just like Tom Porter did one time. I listened to him. And I heard what he had to say, even though he spoke his language. Like I think I don't know if it was you I sat with Renee regarding that. Because no matter what language you speak,
Mhm.
you can still understand what they are saying. I can't remember, but anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's how far I got. Anyway, it's 9:05, 6 o'clock. Now I'm going to sing "God Save the Queen."
And all her relatives.
No, I don't. Only her. Only her. Never mind her relatives.
Oh,
Anyway.
Okay, my cheeks hurt. My
Why?
cheeks are hurting from your stories. They were just so lovely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, like I said, a lot of our stories are our stories here in our community are because we live on an island, and because we're surrounded by water all the time, and that some people think it's a dangerous place to live. Well, technically it is, but all you got to do is go back to some of the stories that we were told when we were younger. Will get us through those hard times. Like right now, some of the stories I learned growing up are getting me through this hard time of this pandemic. Because I know what to do. I know how to take the what do you call it off when I feel down and out. I sing, I smudge, I phone somebody, I go on my iPad and watch funny videos, laugh, and that's how we need to take care of ourselves. Imagine our old people way back. They had nothing. All they had was the land to look after them. The animals, they looked after the people. So they had all that. And that's what makes me so happy about that when I think about some of those things. How come I didn't really want to, how come I did not learn that part? I learned it after I sobered up. But they say you're never too young to learn.
I love that.
That's why I'm only 50.
The more you learn, the younger you get.
Exactly. The more
The
stories
younger
we
you
tell,
feel.
the more stories we tell, the younger I get.
That's true.
Right, Grandmother Renee?
Absolutely.
Are you gonna sing us out of this one, Neil? And if you do, I just have one little thing I'd like to share, if you don't mind.
What did you say?
Will you sing us out of this one too? You have another song for us?
Okay, I got another song. Okay.
But can I just share one little thing with you?
Mungai, pungai, chicka, chicka, chungai, way, hey, hi, ho, hi.
I'd like to share something, if you don't mind, for a second though. My uncle Drew is passing to the spirit world, and he's very close, and I sent a medicine bag that I prepared for him the other day, and I just mailed it to my aunt and my family in Waterloo. And on the medicine bag actually had a thunderbird. And so I just am so moved that you spoke of what I wrote to them and how I felt the connection to him, and you shared that, and I'm so grateful that I feel like I'm so connected to all of you and connected to my spirit. It's things like that just remind me of the good work. I did yell before. I was a yelling mom before. Macy said I'm better at that now. So tonight was just like really beautiful for me and my family. So
Okay. What did she yell at you for there, Macy?
what did I yell at you for?
Okay, I'm gonna write this down.
Maybe brushing your teeth,
One of those. Okay, well.
showering,
Oh, yeah.
all the responsibilities.
My granddaughters do the same thing. I said, you got to comb your hair, brush your teeth. Did you have a shower?
See?
But I didn't yell. I was calm.
I'm
Brush your teeth. No.
I text her now.
Did you say your uncle? Your uncle's getting ready to leave?
Yes.
Okay. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bear song. And that'll be for everybody who, a healing song, actually. Mm-hmm. And also for your uncle, because when he leaves this world, all those pains and everything that he carries now will be gone. Mm. So I want to sing this song for him, but also for the people that need that healing. Okay?
Yeah.
Abo de no magde do kachicha kerin des nikas wab shigeni do dem jamne do gweshmin no chkwab me an wena chigam to wa sagewi no mino gewi na shgo neni gewi no na majat mi mande wa ngam win wa ngam to Aspukin lagi di pesawat segewi pada landas batuan. Bila malam ini gewi nasi gawat dan jadi gue sebenarnya kuat betul dari cinta. When gewi jangan kita wetan gewi masih rongis gewi kita sekarang tinggi deh. Jadi gue sebenarnya betul. Kita pesawat rela pesawat. Now remember, I don't sign autographs till June 32nd.
Gee, McGwitch.
So, are we done like Flint?
Yeah, we're done. I don't want to go though. It's so cozy. I might sleep on my couch.
Well, that's where that's where all the energy is from tonight, is on that couch.
Mm.
So you may have to sit there for a while.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to say thank you, and this is our last one, right?
No, we have one more. March.
March.
You left it.
Oh, actually, I'm actually heading to Indonesia.
In your mind.
See, that's what Creator said. That's what Creator said when I left his side. He says, "I want you to go raise havoc down there with all the people, make them laugh." Oh gosh. Okay, so March again, eh?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll send you the date. My mom just messaged and said thank you. That was amazing.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll on my prayers to your uncle.
Yeah.
And again, that song was most partly for him, and the song was also for the people that are suffering through this COVID, and the ones that have gone on before us. We give thanks to them, and we give thanks to all of you that are here.
Thank you.
Miigwech.
Thank you.
Good night.